Let's begin with the foundations. Welcome to another lecture. Today we examine I Will Find You, the 2026 Netflix miniseries adapted from Harlan Coben's 2023 novel. I am Alexei and with me is Priyanka. Our aim is simple: define the work precisely, situate it in its industrial and cultural context, and extract what it teaches us about institutions and families under stress.
Hi, I am Priyanka. I think this story is a good case for asking how a tightly plotted novel becomes a complete screen narrative without losing its tension. Thanks for having me, Professor.
To frame our discussion, I Will Find You is an American crime drama miniseries on Netflix. 8 episodes, closed-ended, adapted from Coben's novel. It centers on a wrongful conviction that entangles family, police, prisons, and federal agencies. Now, definitions. A miniseries is a television work with a predetermined number of episodes telling a complete story. Wrongful conviction denotes the legal outcome in which an innocent person is found guilty. Here, it is the engine of both character and plot. An executive producer is the senior creative and managerial authority who steers financing, high-level story decisions, and production oversight. In this case, Harlan Coben functions in that capacity via Final Twist Productions, with Robert Hull as co-creator and showrunner, guiding day-to-day narrative cohesion. Finally, a streaming service is an on-demand online platform for video distribution. Netflix functions as both distributor and initial exhibition venue in this instance.
I guess in simpler terms, it is a one-season story, the author helps run the show, and we watch it on Netflix whenever we want. The wrongful conviction part is the pivot around which everything turns. That sounds right.
Moving forward, the stakes are recognizably real-world. Wrongful convictions are not only personal tragedies, they test the permeability of institutions to error, bias, and influence. This series foregrounds precisely those junctions where formal authority meets informal loyalty. For example, a prison warden who is also a family friend, a police detective whose power seems to serve a private heiress, an FBI task force where leadership is also paternal. It is important to understand that the show's narrative pressure arises from those intersections, not from any single villain, but from systems that can be bent or blurred by relationships and money.
It makes me wonder how audiences read that. Like, do we see the system as broken? Or do we see people exploiting the grey areas? Probably both, and the show seems to want that tension.
On to our next point, the basic record. The series premiered globally on Netflix in June 2026. It is an 8-part limited series. Sam Worthington stars as David Burrows, a former law professor serving a life sentence after being framed for murdering his son. Britt Lower is Rachel Mills, a former Boston Globe reporter who reopens the case by bringing David evidence that his son may still be alive 5 years later. Milo Ventimiglia is Hayden Payne. Erin Richards is Cheryl Dreesen. Robert Hull co-creates with Harlan Coben and serves as showrunner. Executive producers include Coben, Hull, Brian Winbrandt, Stephen Lillian, and John Weber.
And the production timeline is clear too. 2023 gives us the novel. Then March 2025 announces the core cast. April 2025 rounds out a big ensemble. And filming runs April to August 2025 in Kingston and Toronto, with the Kingston Penitentiary offering realism. Late August adds New York City locations like Washington Square Park, Central Park, and Times Square. That is quite a map.
As we continue, the premise is compact. David in prison. Rachel brings evidence of possible survival. The pursuit crosses Boston Police, Briggs Penitentiary, the FBI's Boston Fugitive Task Force, and organized crime. The supporting cast articulates these vectors. Jonathan Tucker as Boston Police Sergeant Adam Mackenzie. Peter Outerbridge as Philip Mackenzie, the Warden of Briggs. Madeline Stowe as Gertrude Payne, a wealthy heiress with a secret. Greg Brick as corrupt detective Stefano Stavros, who acts as her enforcer. Hugh Thompson as Lenny Burrows, David's father. Logan Browning as FBI Special Agent Sarah Greer. Chi McBride as Max Williams, her father and task force leader. Clancy Brown as Nicky Fisher, a semi-retired mobster with leverage. Jefferson Brown as fertility doctor Jacob Heller. And Tom Morton as Daniel Mueller, a Swiss Federal Office of Police detective. In simpler terms, the family tree meets the org chart, and neither is simple.
And there is the child casting note that hints at identity. Ashton Cressman is credited as Matthew Burrows, also known as Theo Payne, which telegraphs that identity will be a puzzle rather than a secret. I found that choice, surprisingly upfront.
Before we get to the complexities, a personal note. I am interested in how popular thrillers operationalize social anxieties. We observe the grammar of suspicion shift from strangers to systems we know by name. Good or bad, these fictions act as stress tests on our intuitions about trust. This logically leads us to three organizing questions. First, historically, how did the series themes evolve from the 2023 novel to the 2026 screen, given the relocation into a US setting? Second, counterfactually, what if the adaptation had remained non-American, as earlier Netflix Coben adaptations often did? Third, interpretively, what open threads or ambiguities are left for viewers, and how do they intersect with the mixed to average critical reception?
I've been wondering about the first one. When you move a story into American institutions, what actually changes on screen beyond accents and signage? How do the themes travel without thinning out the novel's texture?
To elaborate, relocating to Boston area institutions is not cosmetic. It respecifies power and procedure. The U.S. system adds a fugitive task force with federal-state interplay. It introduces a penitentiary warden whose discretion matters to transfers and access. It places a decorated reporter within a very specific media ecosystem and legal environment. Harlan Coben, as executive producer, ensures tonal fidelity to his suspense-driven sensibility, while Robert Hull, as showrunner, calibrates pacing across 8 episodes. The result is a structure that privileges tightly plotted twists with definitive resolution. In this context, the visual use of Kingston Penitentiary provides tactile credibility to confinement, while New York locations widen the chase geography and signal cross-jurisdictional stakes.
Can we say that adaptation is mostly about compressing point of view? Like, the book can live inside David's head. The show has to externalize that. What are the usual tools here?
Arguably, yes. We observe 3 common devices. 1. Redistribute interior monologue into relational friction. For example, conflicts between David and allies such as Rachel or Adam let us hear strategy and doubt rather than only feel it. 2. Proceduralize emotion. The FBI father-daughter dynamic between Max Williams and Sarah Greer effectively turns personal ambition and mentorship into operational stakes. 3. Foreshadow identity thematics directly. The crediting of Ashton Cressman as Matthew Burrows/Theo Payne announces a puzzle of parentage and substitution, so suspense shifts from whether to how and why, a classic Coben technique adapted to screen clarity. In conclusion, the show preserves the novel's preoccupations by letting institutions voice what the page once interiorized.
Building on that, what if the series had stayed outside the US, like earlier Netflix takes on Coben? How would the plot machinery feel different in, another legal culture?
Let's transition to another aspect. A non-American setting would alter jurisdictional geometry. Without an FBI-style fugitive task force, the chase logic would lean more heavily on national police structures or cross-border liaisons. Extradition and mutual legal assistance would likely move from backdrop to plot driver. Media leverage would adjust to different press norms. Prison administration would look and feel different architecturally and procedurally. And the representation of police oversight and corruption would map onto distinct accountability mechanisms. The Swiss element embodied by Detective Daniel Mueller could become central rather than satellite, shifting the narrative toward identity movement across borders and record-keeping practices, particularly if questions of concealed parentage arise through a fertility specialist like Jacob Heller. In simpler terms, change the legal plumbing, and the suspense circulates through different pipes.
I often think audiences enjoy recognizing their own systems, but internationalization can add novelty. Do you think moving out of the US would strengthen or weaken the themes about institutional entanglement?
It is worth noting that entanglement is portable, because families and institutions coexist everywhere, but its expression localizes. In the American frame, the personal overlaps are unusually tight. The warden is a friend of the protagonist's father. The best friend is a police sergeant whose father is the warden. A corrupt detective serves a private heiress. In a different jurisdiction, one might emphasize class networks, party politics, or municipal patronage rather than federal task force protocols. Neither is superior. They would simply stage the same ethical question with different props and rules of evidence. Speaking of ethics, our third question concerns unresolved threads and how they meet reception. While the format promises a closed resolution to the central mystery, the series deliberately leaves interpretive space around mechanisms and culpability. Consider three fronts. 1. Identity and medical ethics. The presence of a fertility doctor, combined with a child given dual names, invites substitution about substitution in records. Even if the core facts resolve, viewers debate the chain of custody of truth. 2. Institutional complicity. The scope of Detective Stefanos Stavros' corruption and the breadth of those who enabled or benefited remain murky by design. That ambiguity mirrors how real conspiracies rarely print their org charts. 3. Elite influence. Gertrude Payne's dark secret functions as a hinge, yet its implications for long-term accountability versus short-term containment can be read multiple ways.
So moving on to audience response. How do these lingering questions shape engagement when critics are split? I saw numbers that looked middle of the curve.
We can infer a pattern from the aggregates. Rotten Tomatoes reported a 61% approval based on 28 reviews with an average rating of 6.1 out of 10. Metacritic recorded 55 out of 100 based on 15 critic reviews. Both indicate mixed to average reception. Such profiles often mean performances and momentum are praised, while some find plotting density or tonal calibration uneven. Open interpretive edges can split viewers. Some enjoy theorizing about how far the corruption ran, or what precisely the witness Hilda Winslow, also known as Harriet Winchester, concealed. Others prefer a cleaner postscript. From a research perspective, the engagement payoff is that ambiguity sustains conversation after credits. The cost is that not all ambiguity reads as intentional.
Maybe that is why fan theories cluster around the margins. Like, how much Nikki Fisher really knows, or whether the father-daughter dynamic inside the FBI shapes decisions we never saw on screen. Those questions keep people talking without undoing the resolution. I guess that kind of sums it up.
To summarize, I Will Find You is an 8-episode American miniseries on Netflix, premiering in June 2026, adapted from Harlan Coben's 2023 novel, and co-created with Robert Hull as showrunner. We examined how the themes translate into a U.S. institutional frame, what would shift if the story sat elsewhere, and which interpretive threads, from identity puzzles to institutional scope, remain productive for discussion. If the topic interests you, it is useful to compare this work with other Coben adaptations, to observe how local systems reshape recurring motifs. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor. And thanks, everyone. See you next time.